You're listening to Baachu Talk FM, a podcast for facilities and workplace services professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundaram, and I'll be sitting down with our facilities and workplace leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the FM industry. Today's guest is Nicola Lathbury. Nikki is the Managing Director of Hexagon FM, a recruitment specialist to the facilities sector. She's also a speaker and chair of FM and Midlands Region for the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management, IWFM. She's passionate about helping people carve careers to achieve their life goals and equipping companies with the most engaged and talented professionals to deliver their business strategies. Very important in these days. With over 15 years of recruitment experience and 3 years operational as an FM, Nicola knows what good looks like, which is why customers in the public and private sector chose to work with her and the Hexagon brand. Welcome, Nicola, to Baachu Talk FM. Great to have you with us.
Morning, Bhaskar. How are you? You okay?
I am good, Nikki. I am good. That's the formal introduction done. Let's go back to the very beginning, Nikki. Where were you?
What I've just realised. I'm so sorry. When I counted it up last night and looked through my CV, I've actually been in the recruitment sector for 22 years. That's bloody depressing, isn't it? I'm so sorry. I did put it through there. I've used an old bio thinking, it's not really changed that much. Not realising when I counted it, I was like, 22 years. That's depressing. I'm so sorry.
Why sorry? I mean, that just tells you that you're young at heart, but you are just getting more wisdom on your way.
I'm more grey hairs.
Yes, Nikki. Let's go back to the very beginning, Nikki. Where were you born? And let's talk about your early life, high school and education.
Lovely. So I was born in a place called Kidderminster. That's in Worcestershire, to anyone that doesn't know it. Education-wise, I left home at 16. Myself and my dad, we didn't really get on that great at that age. And now I realise it's because we were so similar. So I left home at 16, which meant I didn't get to go to higher education. I stopped college and went straight to work. So my first job, I went to work at McDonald's because I needed to be able to pay my rent and pay for my bills, etc. So that was my first job in McDonald's.
Perfect. And Nikki, looking back, growing up in Worcestershire, any pleasant memories comes to your mind as a child?
Yeah, I was very lucky that we lived in a nice place. Kidderminster was quite a quiet town. School-wise, our schools were well equipped. We had a wide range of friends. Mum and dad had nice friends. My mum and dad taught me really good values, and I suppose my interest for joining the FM sector subliminally came through because my dad was a hard services manager, so he was an electrician by trade, and I used to go along and help him if he was doing stuff for friends and for the family, and hold and pass tools for him and stuff, and I used to harass the hell out of him with 1,000,001 different questions. What's that, Dad? Why does that do that? What does that do that for? So that's probably, I think, where my first interest in the sector came from, but not actually realising it.
What a fascinating intro. I mean, that's it. I mean, we all are getting inspired by people around us, but in your case, it was your dad. Fast forward 16 years, you left home, and that would have been a very interesting experience to move out at the tender age of 16, go and work and help yourself. Talk us through your teenager life from 16 all the way you got into a very first professional role.
So at school, I loved school. I was really sporty. I was involved with lots of teams. I used to be an army cadet, and I absolutely loved that. I thrived with that. But my last 2 years of school, I actually got really bullied, because I was a bit of a tomboy, and I used to hang around with the lads that were really popular. They didn't see me, I suppose, as a girl. They just saw me as Nikki that used to play football with them or used to go to connect with them. However, the girls that I would say were probably a little bit more traditionally girly, that fancied the lads that I hung around with, saw this as a threat, and I ended up getting bullied in my last 2 years of my school life. And I've got to be honest, I had a glandular fever and anemia in the last 2 years, and if I'm really, really honest with myself, I did play on that a bit with my mum because I was avoiding going to school as well. But that's kind of what makes me really, really passionate about making sure that people aren't getting bullied in the workplace, making sure that we're looking after people and helping people, and making sure that they've got someone that they can talk to if they need a shoulder to lean on. But yeah, I'd say that's really what shaped my future and wanting to look after people.
That's just beautiful. I think as you gain confidence of going through what you went through, I'm glad that you're going and helping out to others, or even looking for people who need support, Nikki. So from McDonald's, let's talk gradually from there. What happened next?
So at McDonald's, I've always been brought up by my parents to do whatever job that you could do to the best of your experience. So I just went full hog at everything, and as I always do, anybody that knows me, it's all or nothing with me. So I just immersed myself into it, and I wanted to understand the whole business, how it all worked, how it went together, what I needed to do to get to the next level. So I quickly progressed to training squad, which is when you've got your 5 stars and your training squads, you're training other crew members and how to do the job. And I absolutely loved that. I had a passion for helping people, and that's probably where it ties in with my WIFM stuff and hosting the key learning events. I like seeing people get on, and I'm super service driven. So the whole customer experience thing really matters to me. So many years ago, well, I'm quite open. I'm 44 now. So obviously I worked there when I was 16. That's a long time ago. The experience that you get at McDonald's now is very different to what you'd got when I was younger, because they'd obviously not been in the UK as long. They were still very American focused. It was super service focused compared to like UK comparisons. I just loved being immersed in that culture. So I progressed really, really quickly with that. And the thing that held me up was the fact that I wasn't 18, so I couldn't do a shift close after 12. You had to have finished on shift then. So I moved on from there and then went into customer service and admin roles, and then started to get into telesales. And then that's where my sales career started.
Got it. I think I think everything teaches you something, Nikki. Thank you. I think, as you rightly said, I did 2 years in KFC myself.
Yeah.
I actually thought my career is KFC, because it's good that when you are a friendly person like who you are, and then it's kind of, you just say hello to people. You sometimes see the same people every day, most of the time, every time at the same time, and then be nice to people, and then it just comes in. And Americans, as you rightly said, are much more into customer service than traditionally what we are used to here. I'm glad that you got foundational aspects there. You moved to telesales and sales from there. Talk us through all the way from then to starting the Hexagon FM, your own.
So I did various different sales jobs. I'd sold stationery, I'd sold waste management products, which I then ended up in the waste management sector further down. That bounced and come back again. And then I worked in call centres. So I worked in the Vodafone call centre, and unfortunately I had to leave there due to the fact I had to escape a relationship where there was domestic violence. So I had to leave my job, so I couldn't be tracked down from there. And that was a shame, because I really loved working there. In fact, I had some absolute screamers of things that happened while I was working. And I'm known for being a bit of a prankster as well. So my mischievous nature tends to come out, and I can't hide it then. But I went to work when I escaped domestic violence. I had to change area. They moved my area, and I got housed in a different area of Birmingham, which meant, because I'd had to leave my job, I had to go into the job centre to sign on. I'd never signed on before in my life, never claimed any benefits, and went in to fill in all the forms. And me being me, just turned around and said, well, how did you get your job, what you're doing? And they said, oh, well, we're actually recruiting for people at the moment. I was like, can I speak to the manager then? And they must have thought, who is this cheeky mare? But they wheeled the manager out to speak to me, and I was chatting away to him, and he said, would you like to apply? So I applied for the role, had an interview a couple of days later, and ended up going to work for the job centre on a temporary contract there as an advisor. And it was from there that I enjoyed helping people, getting to know them and what they needed to be able to move their lives on. And I combined, when I finished there, they asked me to go permanent, but the money and civil service is absolutely horrendous. So I combined that with my sales experience when I did telesales and applied for a training recruitment role. And that was 22 years ago. Which is that's quite frightening when you think about that, like, that I've been doing recruitment for 22 years and I've not bounced off the walls yet. So that's how I got into recruitment. I started off in industrial recruitment initially, which is really hardcore. It's high volume, long hours, low pay, low margins, and then I went from there into construction. And I loved working in the construction sector. And I left there because I was getting bullied by one of the team. So I left there, and I'd been getting called by a headhunter to ask me to go and work for another business. So I called them and spoke to them, and they asked me if I was interested in doing a job in FM, in facilities management. And I was like, what's facilities management? And when she got explaining to me what it was, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I already do trades and labour where I am. And some of them do maintenance, although it's majority install. And they said, well, you had some experience. The more I got talking about it, I was like, oh, that's what my dad does. My dad's a maintenance manager and head of facilities. So I went to do that. I switched from temp recruitment to perm recruitment, which is a lot slower pace to what a temp desk is, really high energy, which suits my personality. But I can remember the first few weeks speaking to different candidates and chatting away to them. And my first few calls, because if you think about the construction industry, people are working on a tight deadline, they're working to budget and specifications, so they're very much get out, get it done. So when you're trying to have a conversation with them during the workday about are they interested in a role, they don't necessarily want to speak to you. So sometimes they can be quite brusque. But then when I first started working in FM, obviously people that work in the FM sector are all people, aren't they? They do it because they want to enhance people's experience. So I was explaining that I just changed from construction into FM, asking them to tell me about their day, what they did on a day-to-day basis. And of course, FMs are like, yeah, and they're quite happy to chat to me, quite happy to talk to me about it. And they're like, come on down to site, you can come and have a look round, because everyone's super proud of their sites. And I spent my first 2 weeks saying, oh my God, he's really nice. Oh, she was really nice. Oh my God, they were really nice. To the point they were like, Nikki, shut up. But I just couldn't believe the difference between the construction sector and the FM sector. And from that moment on, I was captivated. I started to get into volunteering, and I've never left the sector since.
Totally, Nikki. Again, every step in your life and career is kind of made specifically for you. I can see that. So, and then you kind of dwell deeper on this. You enjoyed it, and from recruitment, you came into construction, as you rightly said, construction to FM, and then you just did your own thing. So, at what point did you leave working as an employee and then switched and started Hexagon? What you made up the decision?
So I was working for another recruitment business, still doing FM, and I just got a bit frustrated with some of the ethics and the things that was going. It was a hugely competitive marketplace, and some of the ethics just didn't sit right with me. So I left them, then I went to work in FM. I said, I'm never doing recruitment again. I went to work for an FM business in soft services. and absolutely loved it. And started off in ops, did a big change management project, and then moved into business development, because it was always intended for me to go into business development, but I had a thing where I was like, I don't want to go out and sell something that I don't understand myself. So although I've been recruiting for it for years, I'd not delivered it. So I went into ops initially, ended up doing a big change management project there, which when I look back at it now, and I was like, that was really, really good. And those guys that worked for me, they would have walked over coals for me and done anything. And we really did achieve a lot. And we serviced clients like M&S, Cardiff Pinnacle Insurance, and Summers, the McArthur Glen shopping outlets, and loved that. And then I got to a point where things were changing within the business, working with a long gestation period in FM business development, I found quite frustrating because they only wanted to go for really big contracts. However, we weren't self-delivering. So when you manage services, you're always quoting margin upon margin, and the contractors that you're asking to price are actually bidding for it themselves anyway. So you're kind of piddling in the wind really a little bit. You're never really going to win those pieces unless you're doing like a value re-engineering. So I come out of there and I went for dinner with Liz Kentish from Kentish & Co. And Liz has kind of been a bit of a mentor for me across my career. And we went for lunch and I said, oh, I'm not really happy. She said, well, what do you want to do? You've proved that you could switch from recruitment into operational FM and done really well at it. What do you want to do? I said, I kind of actually really miss recruitment. But I just didn't want to work in the toxic environment that I worked in before. So that led me, she said, well, why don't you just start up your own recruitment business? And I was like, oh, I didn't really think of that. You know, when it's right in front of your nose. And that was it. That weekend, I went back home. She said, I'll see you again in 3 months. We'll have a catch up. Went back home, registered the business over the weekend, handed my notice in on the Monday, and that's it. A month later, went back into recruitment from a standing start when I'd not been in it for the last 3 years. But we were very, very lucky. I reached out to a few people and said, look, I'm coming back. Is there any space for me in the marketplace? And they're like, there's always space for honest recruiters, because obviously it's not a trait that everybody's knows recruitment with. And it was lovely to be welcomed back with open arms, and we had people out working on the first day that I opened, which is great. So that was 9 years ago now in December.
Wow, so getting into 10 years now. So
yeah,
that's beautiful. Again, we all need this compelling event to make the decision. And as you rightly said, we also need a gentle push from our trusted friends or mentors to just make this happen, just instilling that little confidence in ourselves. But I'm glad Liz is able to put that seeds in, and today Hexagon is a well-known brand. So talk us through why Hexagon FM. What's the name?
So why Hexagon? The reason I chose Hexagon is, of course, obviously it has many different sides. And I felt it was a brand that we could create, that we could build, grow into. I didn't want it to just be recruitment. I felt that for people to succeed in their careers, they need many more things other than just recruitment. There's the networking, there's knowledge, there's training, etc. And that was the idea before around Hexagon, is that it was a brand that I could grow into and expand further down the line as the brand developed.
Nice, that's good one. Again, our brand mascot is also Hexagon, so it's quite interesting. We are in the same wavelength there, Nikki.
Yeah, excellent. Well, also as well, like thinking about it, when I started talking to Sean about it more, and he said, well, obviously hexagons are so prevalent in cell structure, etc. Obviously, you think about them honeycombs with bees. Without bees, we have no crops, we have no food, we have no life, and the circle of life and stuff like that. So that's if we want to get really deep.
That's the thing. I think you need to have the deep meaning of why you do what you do. For a long run, you could start anything, right? And within 1 or 2 years, you could say that's not for me, and you can blame enough reasons to just find it's not working for me. But if you are in long term, every single aspect needs to add up. And I'm glad that from the name it's starting to work. So you started Hexagon FM 9 years ago, and then you started to work within the industry. While you started in the early 2010s, 12s, etc., you might have seen the new way of, that's the thing, austerity was kicking in, 2008 crisis, 2010. Talk us through from 2010 to COVID, and now I still want to say post-COVID, but COVID is still here with us. Talk us through what you saw in the FM from the talent side, and or anything else that you come across in the FM in this past 10, 12 years.
So what I've experienced since working in the FM sector, when I first came into it, it's quite sad to say that women really were the minority back then, massively so. Like, if you got a lady that could do a job, it's like, oh my God, I got a woman. But then also you'd speak to them, know that they're credible, but trying to convince a client to then take a woman on for the role was really, really quite challenging back then. If I think about how businesses operated, so a lot of work was done on the golf course, over a few rounds of golf. It was done in the pub over drinks. You had to be in the city, that sort of stuff, to be seen. And I think we've really, really come a long way since then, thank God. I can remember when I was first recruiting for the sector, and very much saying, because they were saying about we want to look at all different candidates. But then when you think about it and you talk to them, and it's like, okay, then you have to be at your desk between these hours to these hours, and you need to be able to go away and stay away 3 nights a week, or you've got to be able to do this, you've got to work late every evening. And what they didn't actually realise is that way that they operated their business wasn't really allowing for women to come in anyway. It was almost like they were putting up these invisible barriers that they didn't see themselves, because it's the way that they'd always worked. And that's why I got involved with them, with Women in FM, because awesome people like Lucy James, who I know you've had on the show as well, and Lennox Martin, Marilyn Standen, Liz Kentish, Jude Cortens, those guys were all there at the start, and they must have had a really, really tough time. And I know that one of the reasons that Lucy started the Women in FM group is because she went to an event many, many years ago, and somebody put their hands up to ask a question. A lady put her hands up to ask a question, and it was almost very much scoffed at by the guys in the room about the question that she'd asked. And that was one of the driving forces behind Lucy actually setting up Women FM. So women had a safe space to learn, to ask questions without fear of reprisal. So the sector's really, really moved on now to the point where we are proactively looking to diversify our workforce, and not only on a gender basis, but through D&I. So we're looking at people from all nationalities, all sexualities, different backgrounds, and that should only be celebrated, because it makes lots of different people to make a great team. And also very much so that whereas people were always gunning to recruit mavericks for their roles, now people are starting to be a lot more intelligent about how their teams are made up. If you've got a load of mavericks in their team, the chances are some of the personality traits that they have, they might not be your completer finishers. So you end up with lots of things going on in the background that never get finished. So people are so much more open now and welcoming. And I feel as an industry we've grown, and there's so much more to offer. And I know this sounds really bad, and I know people probably won't all agree. I think COVID, along with all its challenges that we had, very much started to level the playing field for people, because it showed businesses that people could operate from home and work remotely and still operate the business and still do what they needed to. In some cases, it actually enhanced the offering. But then that also then opened up the talent pool for them. So where they might have said that we're recruiting for somebody in Birmingham, they have to be within the hour of the office. If you look at skills like bid managers, estimators and stuff like that, you're fishing in a really shallow pond. And so it's been really, really good for opening up the sector to people, and for some people to actually come and return back into the sector. Whereas where the culture was around that presenteeism and being in the desk 5 days a week now, clients are very much thinking, as long as that job gets done, I don't really care where it gets done from, as long as it's to the right standard and people are living our values, and they've just adapted their working practices around it. So it's lovely to see lots of senior female leaders now in director roles, to see some smashing strong teams there as well. When we go to the awards, seeing a lot more of a diverse base that have gone forward for the awards as well, and that can only be celebrated. I would like to see more diversity and inclusion within the sector. I still think we've got a long way to go. We've got a massive shortage in people just aren't applying for roles at the moment. So where you would have worked them on a contingency basis, you put an advert on, they apply for it, people just aren't tending to apply very much anymore, or if they are, they've not got the right skill sets, so you're having to go out and search for them. And I think we are missing a massive untapped market, whereas if we were able to get some sponsorship programs, there are lots of people in other countries that are constantly messaging us to say we would like to come and work in the UK, but so many companies don't do the sponsorship programs, and that's something that I'd like to talk to our clients more and see if there's a way around that, because we are struggling for people, and it's not that people don't want to do the job, they just are not allowed in. So how do we overcome that?
Well, Nikki, thank you for sharing from the very start, from Women in FM all the way into how you saw the sector evolving and how COVID accelerating the pace of change. That was beautiful. And also the important point that you touched is the talent crisis, which is like, yes, and every company has hundreds of vacancies now, from engineers all the way up into, as you rightly said, bid managers, estimators, and there is always vacancies around. So do you find talent shortages were there? Did it happen just during this COVID thing, or was it there already, but it just accelerated, or it just became really big during this crisis?
I think we'd already got a bit of a talent shortage anyway, but then obviously when you combine that with Brexit and COVID, lots of people went home with Brexit, and then also when COVID hit and people were being furloughed, and we didn't know how long it was going to be till we was going to be allowed out again. We didn't know what we were facing. Everyone thought everyone was going to die at first. So that was quite scary in the first instances, until they got a bit of a lid on it. So lots of people returned home to their families. So any of the foreign workers that we did have here that could have applied for settlement returned back home. And so we not only lost them through Brexit, we then lost them again through COVID, because what few people were planning to stay then returned home because the future was insecure. We didn't know what it looked like, did we? So that's then further compounded this talent crisis. And then also obviously with the fact that cost of living and inflation, clients are a lot more risk averse now. So whereas people were waiting to start new contracts, some of the clients have held off and they've just rolled on their existing contracts. So there's not as much revenue coming in. So therefore that then starts to filter down. So there's not as many training programs going on or internships bringing people into the sector. And I think there's still an element of, with the hybrid working, companies that maybe would have offered an internship, excuse me, or taken on trainees, are still trying to work out what that program looks like with an intern working from home, because you need that peer-to-peer learning, don't you? You get the learning from being on the job and around people. And if it's not a role that's traditionally based out in the field, and their colleagues, their more senior colleagues that they'll be learning from are based from home, I think people are starting to hold off on that. So we're getting holes plugged every different way that it would normally filter in.
I think well said, Nikki. I think that kind of brings out to let's talk a little bit about Hexagon FM. I mean, like, what type of roles do you recruit, and then how did you evolve over COVID period yourself? Just give us an overview of your business, and also within the COVID period, do you have to do anything to make yourself different? And a few words there.
Yeah. So we primarily recruit for managers and directors, so senior appointments within the facilities management and workplace sector. We only operate within FM and workplace and estates. We don't dabble in other sectors. Very much a believer of aces in their places. We've got the advantage of the fact that I've worked in the sector before, so you know what good looks like. I know that some of my previous contractors that worked for me when I was in FM that I've since recruited for when I came out and come back into recruitment. And I can remember saying to the one guy, I'll just get the CVs over to you before the interviews and that, just bear with me because obviously they've just come through. And he's like, don't worry, Nikki, it's fine, I trust you. He said, Nikki, you've been the client, I know you're a ball breaker. He said, so if they're good enough for you, they're good enough for me. I was like, I'm not really sure if that's a compliment or an insult, to be fair. But he said, no, that's definitely a compliment. But primarily managers and directors, we're starting to do a lot more retained work now. We are tending to work on roles really that are exclusive. If a role's got too many agencies on, we don't bother working it because not everybody works to the same processes where they bother to phone the candidates and brief them on it. We've had a few occasions where people have just sent the candidates CVs over from other agencies because they're on their database, but they've not actually talked to them about the role. So when we've gone and done the process properly, we've spoke to them, we've briefed them, they don't realise they've been sent over. We've sent the CV over and submitted it with their permission. And they're like, oh, I've already got this CV from so-and-so agency. So we're tending not to work the roles that have got other agencies on there because it takes a lot longer to fill a role now. You are tending to have to fill them on search rather than contingency, and the fees aren't tending to be changing on those, but we're working with the clients that really value what we can offer to them, so we're tending to do a lot more research, retained work now. Just done a couple of roles with different universities and colleges. So I enjoy doing those sorts of things because obviously you're feeding the future then as well, aren't you? So that's really good. And we work with end clients, end users, what we term as end users, so direct clients. We also work with some of the facilities service providers as well. And we work with consultancies. So we work across the board with lots of different types of clients, and that allows people to progress throughout their sector. If they've done service provider, they might want to step into client side, and then if they've done client side and service provider, they potentially make a good consultant further down the line. So it's helping people follow their career long aspirations. So our tagline that we've just rebranded as Hexagon Group is lifelong career solutions for the built environment. And the idea is to be with them for the whole of their career, whether they be client or candidate, and to help signpost them for training and networking, that sort of thing. But we took the period throughout COVID as a time to regroup. So what we actually did is we implemented a new CRM system. So that allowed us to be able to use it with our clients. So they get to use it as an ATS system, like a client candidate management system, so they can track any of their jobs on there. They can see which candidates they've seen, they can leave comments, they can even put their availability on for interviews if they're working out of hours, or there's a couple of people that need to coordinate. So that's been really good. We've gone for a rebrand, we've had a new website, we've repositioned the clients that we want to work with. There's some clients that we've decided to not work with because they're just difficult to work with, that they say that we want something, you go and find it for them, and then they just disappear and don't come back to you. And we don't feel that that's a good candidate experience for our candidates, and it's not a good working relationship for us. So unless there's that proper respectful relationship between the client and ourselves, where they will communicate with you, and they will move things on quickly. You can't work with a client that won't move quickly at the moment, because you just lose the candidates. So we've refined what clients that we work with, and that's actually allowed space for better clients to come in that are more aligned to our values, that we can do more for. So I think sometimes it's having the confidence to look at it and take a step back and look at it and say, actually, we're not really aligned for each other. And if that's how you want to operate, then we're not the right agency to do business with. So it's been quite refreshing. It's taken a lot of the stress away as well. So it's been nice to realign what clients we actually do want to work with.
Yes, I think that's it. I think I'm glad that you took the time. Thank you for sharing about how the talents are recruited in, and the challenges that you face on working with multiple agencies and, you know, having the same CVs. I think we came across some of these things for strategy-based projects recently as well. But and also, I'm glad that you managed to pull out a CRM system, manage to work through what type of clients you want to work with. I think it's all falling in place, Nikki. It's on words from here. But you weren't just doing Hexagon FM on that. As we rightly saw, you were still very active in this 2.5 years, both in IWFM, Midlands Region, and also in Women in FM, just reaching out to helping people on that as well. That's something that you also did. So that's brilliant. So let's just go back and talk a little bit about IWFM, and when did you come across IWFM, and talk us through your entry and in your current roles and stuff.
So I've been a follower of IWFM. Well, it was back in the days of BIFM, when it was British Institute of Facilities Management, back in the BIFM days. And I know I get like a little poke if I accidentally say BIFM now. But you can tell who the old volunteers are and the people that have been in the industry for a long time. But I've been a volunteer for 10 years now on the committees. I've been chair for 3 years now. So obviously we had COVID, we had loads of plans all set up ready to go, and we were really gathering momentum, and then COVID came in. I was really gutted, because that year we were planning to do the WIFM conference in London, Birmingham and Manchester, which had never been done before. One of the things when I took over as chair of Women in FM, I suppose my manifesto, so to speak, was to be able to open up the events and to have them running across the country. It had very much typically been a special interest group that had largely operated out of London, to be honest. And being Brummie myself, I took umbrage with that, and I felt that as a member, because obviously I'm a member as well as a volunteer, I don't get my membership for free or anything. I still have to pay as a member. In fact, I pay as an individual member and also as a corporate as well for the business. But I felt it was unfair that people were paying the same price for membership across the UK and getting a very different experience depending on where they lived in the country. Because obviously everything was largely concentrated around London. Obviously the North region are really, really established up there, and they do a great job. Midlands was building up as well, so we were doing great before COVID and really gathering some momentum. The events were starting to sell out as well. But my thing was, I felt that all members needed to get the same experience and have access to the conferences. The Women in FM conferences are traditionally really inspiring, and they will you'll go through laughter 1 minute to tears the next, and something really thought-provoking and then inspiring, and you learn lots. It's very interactive, you meet lots of people there. So I wanted to be able to take that on the road. So we tested that the year before COVID, and we were kindly hosted by Interserve at Intersection House in their beautiful new building, and we did a mini conference there. And we just replayed some of the stuff that we did in London. And we were supported by the lovely Sam West, came and spoke up there as well, had a great reaction. And the plan was the following year to do London, Birmingham and Manchester. And we were all set up. Barclays were going to host us in Manchester, and Interserve are happy to have us again in Birmingham. And then COVID happened. and it all went pear-shaped. And we couldn't get out there and do the events. And I've got to be honest, I find that really, really difficult, because I thrive on being out there in the community and seeing people face to face and being able to bounce off people. And it's the energy and adrenaline of running the events is what I enjoy, and knowing that you're really helping people. So some of the people, especially if they're an end user FM, if you think about it, you might be the only FM in the company, and it's getting people together so that they can build a network around them with support and trust, so that they can feel supported in their role and they don't feel alone. I mean, if you're the sole FM in that company and you're reporting straight into the FD or the CEO, and they're asking you a question that you just don't know about, that can be quite frightening, because you'll think, well, if I turn around and say, well, I don't know, I'm going to go and find out for you, are they going to sack me? So there's a real importance and the value to the work that IWFM do around giving people those support networks so that they can bounce off each other. And I set up a separate thing, FM Connect, that we run from Birmingham, and that was around bringing the property and FM sector together as well. And that's in a much more informal environment, and the idea being that people can network there to do business together. And a lot of those people then end up feeding into IWFM and joining the institute as well, which is good. So
That's
yeah,
right.
I love doing it. It never feels, it can sometimes be stressful because we're unpaid volunteers and we're trying to do this as well as the day job. We don't get a budget for it, so we have to raise any budget that we have to do events is either done through sponsorship, or it's done by the goodwill of people wanting to support the institute by offering them a venue, offering them catering. The speakers are unpaid as well. So it's a lot to be able to do, especially for a 10-year stint as well, to be able to keep feeding that beast to keep the events running.
Wow, I think 100%. I think you kind of nailed a very important point here, which is like, the associations exist, but it relies on volunteers, and the volunteers are volunteers. Obviously, they still need to keep their career or keep their business floating, manage their families, and then come on and support the industry and the associations. But thank you to you and lots of other volunteers who stepped in to still keep things moving, Nikki. Thank you for that. Nikki, before we close part one, talk us through 3 things not many people know about.
Right, okay, so 3 things not many people know about me. I'm quite an open person, so lots of people tend to know things about me, to be honest. 3 things. So I'm a domestic violence survivor, and that's something that I'm really, really proud of. There is so many people that you would realize men and women that have been in this situation, and it's not talked about enough. And very often when you speak to these people, you would think they're a really, really strong woman. How did that happen to them? But at the time, you don't realize until you're trapped in that situation. It's a slow process, doesn't happen overnight, and it's very, very gradual. And it's not nice to be in there. I've unfortunately been in that situation twice, and I'm very, very lucky to have escaped that. Don't get me wrong, had to leave everything behind and start all over again, but at the end of the day, it's bricks and mortar and jobs, and you could just get another job and start again. But I refuse to be kept down. But yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is I'm a proud adopter. So last year, in fact, it was a year ago on Monday, I adopted my daughter. Myself and my husband, we adopted our daughter. It's a grueling process, but very, very much worth it. And she is absolutely amazing. She's the light of my life. Or we joke that she's the compliance manager, because she's constantly looking at things to see, like, oh, what's that there? And she starts poking at things and trying to take things apart, or if it's broken. And she's got this face, I clean it, I clean it, and she wants to keep cleaning everything up all the time, which is great. She can carry on with that. That's fine. So that's definitely a great thing. But I won a third thing. I won an award for Networker of the Year just before lockdown, and that was for the networking that I do within the business community and also within the FM community. And that was voted from Midlands Business Community and Charity Awards. And a lot of the people there, they don't do facilities management. They don't even know what facilities management was. And it was a vote-led award. So I won with the most votes for there. And it was a really nice opportunity to be able to put FM on the map and explain what facilities management was that affects everybody's lives on a day-to-day basis, but people just don't realize because they're like the unsung heroes in the background and the fairies that no one sees. So that was really, really nice to be able to bring that back for our sector. So that, I would say, that's my 3 things that people don't tend to know about me.
Thank you, Nikki. I think that's beautiful. I think where you started, you had a very rough ride in domestic violence, and come on, positioning yourself to who you are, giving back. IWFM, FM and FM, Hexagon FM, beautiful daughter, and now networker. People are, especially now with COVID, people are hiding behind the screens even more than what they used to do. So breaking them, you are an inspiration for them. So that ends part 1. When we come back in part 2, we will look into Nikki's hobbies, interests, people in her life, and some random questions to get to know her even more. And finally, we close with some final thoughts. With that, we end part 1. Welcome back. In part 1, we covered Nikki's early life, education, and starting from McDonald's all the way to Hexagon FM, her entry into FM industry, women in FM, IWFM, and the 3 things not many people know about Nikki. Now let's talk about Nikki's hobbies and interests. Nikki, welcome back. Talk us through your hobbies and interests, Nikki.
Hi, Vasco. So hobbies and interests. So I used to have loads of hobbies before I adopted my daughter, and now I don't even get 5 minutes for myself, let alone any hobbies. But I've got a keen interest in sewing. I enjoy sewing. I wouldn't say I'm particularly brilliant at it, but because I have to concentrate at it, it allows me to shut everything else off in my mind, which is good. I love listening to audiobooks, and I'd say I also do meet up with the girls, and we used to do once a month or once every other month. We go and meet up and do something like craft related, just so that you're using a different side of your brain. It's a good chance to chat and catch up and stuff. So we've done anything from glass fusing to painted glass to copper key rings and stuff like that, and it's really nice to just get away and do something different. I love cooking, and actually getting out there with that. We've got a cockapoo, Ruby, and we like to get out in fresh air and just go for walks and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that we can still do now that I've got my daughter. So
really, I think that you are right. I think as we progress in our life, as you rightly said, when you are in your early 40s, we just have to readjust into what's even more important. And I'm glad that you have a cockapoo, and then your daughter, and then you're still sewing and stuff. Anything interesting that you sew that you were like so proud of yourself? You know what, I did it, or what type of things do you sew?
I think for me, volunteering really is one of my interests, to be honest, because it's not always during work time. There's lots and lots of hours outside of it, and it's really nice when somebody comes to you and they say, actually, you've made a difference to them. Like, I saw you speak at this place and you were talking about this, and I felt like it resonated to me, and that spurred me on into action to do something else or to make a change. So I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of is the impact that the volunteering has to the industry and to the people within there, and also what we do as a business as well. I've always said that one of the things about recruitment is that people that are recruiters don't actually realise the power that they have. If you do a really good job, you can enhance somebody's life and help them achieve their life goals, and for them and their family, because obviously your work provides you with your income and that can completely change things. But when people don't actually put the candidate first and what that candidate's trying to achieve for their life, you can actually destroy somebody's life. I've seen some absolute disasters happen, and that's one of the reasons I came out of recruitment before, is when somebody put a candidate into a role because it was more commission for them rather than what the candidate needed. And I was like, what you put them in there for? That's not the right culture for them. And they still put them in anyway. And not long after they left that role, but they also then split up there with a partner because they were already under pressure anyway. And that compounded was just a straw that broke this camel's back. And it was unnecessary. It didn't need to happen. And that's one of the things that took me out of the sector, but also one of the things that drove me back in to make sure that that didn't happen anymore and try and make a difference. So I would say definitely the work that I do with volunteering and also adopting our daughter. I like to think that we've made a difference to her life, but she has massively made a difference to ours. She's completed us in a way that I never dreamed possible before.
I think that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I mean, like, as you rightly said, we could be proud of so many things, but it's a relationship that we inherit or we create gives us the fulfillment in our life. And I'm glad that you continue to build new relationship and sustain your existing and old relationship. Keep doing it. Officially, we are entering what we call random rapid fire questions rounds. There is no right or wrong answers. These questions are random. So just a quick, whatever comes in your mind, that's the response.
That's probably not what you ever want to say to me. I have random things in my mind. Not all of them suitable for a podcast.
We can edit it, don't worry. Right, let's begin. What do you wish people would stop asking you?
What would I wish people would stop asking me? I would have said before we had my daughter, when you're going to have kids, because when you really want to have kids and it's not happening or you've lost a child, that's actually a really painful question to be on the receiving end of without having to explain the whole history. So that's probably one of the things. And also now that we have adopted, do you know what her background is? And it's like, well, we do, but that's her story to share when she's ready, when she's older, if she wants to, and she shouldn't be defined by her story. So that I would say that's changed now. It was before having her, it was about having children, and now it's that people, the first thing they want to know is what happened, what's her story? And it's like, I really want to sometimes say that's none of your damn business. But I'm just try and handle it in a nice, polite way.
I think people will keep talking. You just ignore and you just keep moving. That's good. Thank you. Which superhero would you want to be and why?
Wonder Woman, of course. I'm part of a group. It's a private group called FM Wonder Women, and I'm in that group with people that are like my role models, and I was really overwhelmed and got massive imposter syndrome when they invited me in. So it's people like Lucy James, Anna Lennox Martin, Kathy Hayward, Kath Fontana, Deborah Ward, Sarah Hodge, Katie Dowding. So when they asked me to be involved, I'm like, what the hell are they asking me for? Little old me. So so we are called the FM Wonder Women, and so I would really like to be Wonder Woman.
We are gradually getting into the Wonder Woman stories now. So you are there because it's part of the Wonder Woman series. But yeah, that's nice.
Excellent.
If you could eat only 3 foods for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why?
That's a hard one. So I've recently been diagnosed as gluten intolerant. So I would have said bread before that, but now I'm not allowed to because I'll probably just be really sick again. I would say chicken, I love chicken. Oh, cheese. I love cheese. And can I have a cup of tea instead? Can I negotiate? Because I can't survive without it. Anyone that's been around me when I've not had a cup of tea, it's not pretty. So if we can negotiate cup of tea, if not, rice.
Rice. I think it's interesting. The most of the words that you picked up all starts with C, or it at least has C on it. Chicken, cheese, rice, cup of tea.
Cup of tea. Chocolate. I nearly went with a sensible broccoli, but then I decided against it.
It's two C's as well. So yeah, nice. What's the best compliment you have ever received?
Best compliment. Oh, I'm gonna get emotional now. A friend that I hadn't seen for a long time. I noticed that he was suffering from depression, and I was watching what was happening on I'd been in touch with him, noticing what was happening on his social media posts, and managed to intervene because he was abroad and get a message to somebody, and he was actually planning to commit suicide. So for him to say that your intervention saved my life and made a change, I would say that that was the biggest compliment for me.
That's amazing. I mean, I hope he's doing okay, and thank you.
He's doing really well now, actually. He's actually an ambassador for mental health, as is his daughter, and he's doing really, really amazing things now. So, yeah, I would say that's definitely the best compliment, better than any other accolade, is knowing that you've been able to save somebody's life. I don't think anything's going to beat that, to be fair. Or hearing my daughter say, "Mommy, I love you." So.
That's beautiful. Nikki, I think sharing our life moments, even 5 minutes or even 2 minutes or 30 minutes, matters, because that's the memory that people have on us. And if they need support, and if you're there in your phone book, if they know that they can reach out to you, that's
absolutely. I try and pick up my phone whenever possible, but I would hate to think that I missed a call like that and I could have made a difference. Sometimes people just need to know that you're with them and that you hear them and that they're held.
100%, Nikki. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. Nikki, would you rather lose the ability to write or the ability to speak?
Oh, but do you really need to ask me that? Pascal, I'm the biggest bloody chatterbox in the industry. Yeah, writing can go. It's underrated. Writing could go. I could talk to somebody and then persuade someone else to write for me. So.
I know it's only after I asked the question I realized I should have erased it.
Yeah.
What's your memorable kitchen fail? Do you like cooking?
I love cooking. I've got a legendary spice rack. So I've got over 100 spices in my spice rack. We had to make one for ourselves because we couldn't get one big enough, and it takes up a whole wall. My Indian friends joke about the fact that like their whole family doesn't have as many spices as I have on that spice rack, and I do use them all as well. And I love spices, and so I love.
Favorite dish that people say that's my signature dish?
I do cook a really mean Christmas dinner. I do like a good Christmas dinner, and that crispy roast spuds, pigs in blankets, of which it's going to be more difficult for me to have this year because of being gluten-free now. But make a good curry. I'll throw my hand to anything, to be fair, but I do love curry. I could actually live on curry alone, as long as it's different types of curry.
Totally, Nikki. I will, immedially after this, I'm going to search your address and I'm going to be there in the next.
Yes, hiya, knocking.
Thought I'll come and say hello. By the way, what's in your kitchen?
Yeah, I'll send you a photo of the spice rack after.
Do you have any memorable kitchen fail? That's something you planned or something you tried to cook and it went wrong?
I've got a kitchen fail of a different kind, and this is absolutely, I find it quite funny. It's really embarrassing, and I can't believe I'm actually sharing this, but everybody that knows me knows I'm like very much oversharing and not afraid to make myself look a tit of myself. So when I was working in the said job at McDonald's, I was usually on tills because I was really quick and really like customer focused, and it was a busy Saturday afternoon. And I don't know if anyone could picture in the McDonald's, you've usually got a lot. They used to have a large front counter back in the day, and they'd have like 10 tills on there and people busy. You usually got a fry station at each end, and then the food comes down in the middle and the drinks. And it was a busy Saturday afternoon, and there was massive queues in my hometown. And I was rushing around trying to get these orders ready. And I've gone rushing from one end of the tills down to the other, to the fry station. And as I've gone down there, I've slipped on something and I've skidded. I've skidded about 4 meters and got my feet stuck underneath under the fry station. And the only thing that I could do, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do now? So I just stood up and took a bow because everyone was laughing. I thought there was nothing else that I could do. Like, I wasn't going to run off. I just took a bow and just took it on the chin. So I think that's probably better than any of my other kitchen fails, to be fair.
That's really funny, and thank you for sharing. I mean, like, yeah, we all have done one or two silly things. I'm glad that you actually shared that. So, Nikki, I know you like songs as well. What's your favorite pop group, or what songs do you listen to? And if we kind of have a theme song for your life or theme song for you, that's the song that we play when you enter any room or any event or anything, what would be that song?
I think my song would definitely be Sire Titanium. That's definitely my fight song. And when I worked in FM, the client that I worked for was a nightmare with me, and she used to just try and tear me down all the time. And it was for doing the job that I was paid to do, and I actually did a bloody good job for them. But she just didn't like strong women. So I used to drive all the way down from Birmingham every Sunday night, ready for a week down at work. So I used to have to stay away initially before we moved down there. And I used to blast that in the car on the way down and just try and motivate myself for the week ahead to just try and get through to the end of the week before I could blast it all the way back up to Birmingham again on a Friday night. But Titanium is probably definitely figurative of me and my life story, and overcoming obstacles and challenges, shall we say.
Nice, definitely. We will see whether we could play that part of this podcast as well. So, who haven't you seen or talked to in a long time, and you hope that they're doing okay?
Oh, let me think. I would say Liz Kentish. I was really hoping that she was going to be there last week at the Magenta party. Liz, I call Liz Mama FM. I nicknamed her Mama FM because she's always looked out for me. She's been a massive inspiration, and she's just got such a lovely, positive, calming nature. And of course, obviously, she was the toe up my backside to start my business. But I've not seen Liz for a little while. She's been super busy. I know she's jet setting off with her international clients. But I've been blessed to see David instead, her husband. So I often bump into David because he's chair of people management SIG, and he was at the party last Thursday as well. So Liz, so if you're listening, Liz, I love you, thank you for everything, and keep being you, and I'm sending you a big hug, and we need to meet for lunch very soon, but I'm not starting another business before you start.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm sure Liz will be listening. Nikki, I think would you rather time travel to the past or to the future?
I would say the past, so that I could try and change some of the bad things and lessen the impact, or try and see some of the things that we maybe could have prevented had we have behaved in a different way. We could definitely sort out Putin, couldn't we?
Exactly. So what do you get every time you go for grocery shopping?
Oh, dairy-free milk and gluten-free bread now, because I can't have dairy or gluten, and tea bags. I always get something for my husband as well, so I like to just surprise him with a little treat, and it might just be like a random chocolate bar that I know he likes. He's got quite a sweet tooth, or a little cake or something that I know that he just might enjoy. So I like to surprise people with things.
That's good. I think, do you have any nicknames that your friends used to call you?
Publicly that I can say on a podcast. A lot of my friends know me as Lathers.
Right.
I used to be known as Daggers before I got married. And my parents used to call me Scooter because I used to whiz round on those little, when you get those baby walkers. I used to whiz round at high speed as a child. But now they probably just call me pain in the ass.
That's the end of the random rapid fire question round. Thank you. And who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
My nan, definitely. My nan is my hero. Fortunately, she's no longer with us anymore. But she was a massive inspiration. She brought up three lads. My granddad died really young. He had a stroke at 47, which is why obviously it was a big alarm bell for me last year when I ended up having a stent at 44. So she brought her three boys on her own, and never ever even entertained meeting anybody after that. And then career-wise, Joy Donnell, my old boss when I was in FM, she was an awesome boss because she really stretched me and set me free to just have a go at things and make me realise what I was actually capable of if somebody took the barriers away. And then people like Lucy James, Liz Kentish, Anne Lennox Martin, Julie Cortens, and people like that, Deborah, that have really helped inspire me and provide me that safe space where if I ask a question that they will always help, and many of those have actually become personal friends now as well. But they were the people that I looked up to when I joined the industry, and I remember seeing Liz on the stage when I went to my first conference, and I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like her. And I never ever dreamed that one day I'd actually be chair of Women in FM. So I just hope that one day there's a youngster in the audience that thinks, oh, I want to do that when I grow up, and that they make those steps towards it or reach out so we can help them get there.
That's nice. Totally. I'm glad that you have lots of abundance in your life, Nikki, and continue to build even more abundance. That's great. Nikki, what advice would you give an FM professional or anybody who would like to pursue a career in the industry?
I would say get out there and build your network. Your network is your net worth, and it will be your source of support. It will be your source of inspiration, of knowledge. Never be afraid to reach out to people, because there are so many people out there that are feeling exactly the same. I would say to people to get as many books out and listen to read as many things as you can, get along to as many events, listen to as many podcasts, videos, etc., and just get yourself a thirst for knowledge. But ask other people, how are they dealing with things? Could you go and have a look around their building? Because we're such a welcoming sector that people are always happy to open their door for a cup of tea and for you to go and have a little look around site. Together, we're all stronger. So always reach out to people, share experience, and always be prepared to pay it forward. So if somebody helps you and they give you knowledge, I always say to people, if everyone's like, oh, how can I repay you? I'm like, all I ask is that you do the same for somebody coming up through the ranks. Reach out the hand of friendship to them, help support them, and then ask them to pay it forward to somebody else coming into the industry. So always pay it forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Nikki, successful career, beautiful family, respectable position in both the FM industry and outside in your own area. Lots of love and support within the community. What are you looking forward to in the immediate future? What's next for you?
So I'm looking forward to further building the Hexagon brand. We are going to be on the lookout for more consultants. So if there's any recruiters or anybody that would like to try recruitment that knows the industry, I would like to hear from them. But I'm super excited about doing the conference in September. It's the first one outside of London where we've done the full day conference there. And also we've got lots and lots of events that we're planning for both Midlands and WFM at the moment. So we're hoping to get those all onto the website next week. So I look forward to reconnecting with everybody and seeing people face to face.
Totally, Nikki. I think if there is anything me or my team can help, let us know. I think continue to inspire us, Nikki, and look after yourself, balance your time between your lovely daughter and Hexagon and all your volunteering activities. Wish you, your family, all the good health and happiness. Thanks for joining, and I'll definitely see you very soon.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Nikki.